Here, apologize for running a few minutes late.
Traffic, you can blame the snow.
Yeah, it was a fun day driving back and forth to Boston. So I'd like to call the meeting to order here at 7:07. I'd like to welcome everybody. Robin can't be with us tonight because of unfortunately having to attend a wake. And our newest member, Steve, I guess it's Solomon, was it? He won't be with us either. He's stuck in Cambridge for work, so.
We'll get to meet him next time.
We'll meet him next time on the 29th, so. That being said, move to citizens' queries. Not seeing any citizens. We'll assume there's no questions. Also, I guess just to tell everybody, we are live on ICAM, so we're here for the viewing and pleasure of the Ipswich audience tonight. Next on the agenda is the meeting minutes that Sheila sent out for the last meeting.
To accept as presented.
There's one little correction, so I'm sending it again. I forgot one of the members, but
Okay.
nothing of substance.
One little correction.
One little correction.
Okay, one little correction.
Nothing of incredible
So we'll find out who Sheila doesn't think is that important.
I'm so sorry. I sat next to him. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
you-
As an apology. Sorry, so I won't forget him this time then.
All right, so Barry, would you amend your comment to accept the?
I move to accept the minutes with the amendment as amended.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right. Seeing no further discussions, all those in favor? Aye. It is unanimous. Excellent. Moving on, we've got two items tonight on the agenda. The first is the school committee recently had a workshop to discuss this project. And I'd like to turn it over to Barry, Sarah, and Dr. Hart to give us a synopsis of what they discussed and what their goals may be.
Well, and jump in, Bill, when needed, and Sarah as well, but obviously with all the talk that's been going on about the project, and as it starts to gain traction, it was important for the school committee to weigh in terms of what they were thinking. So we spent a considerable amount of time discussing several options. I will tell you that there was no definitive choice by the school committee in terms of which they would prefer. They are amenable to all three. And by that I mean New Winthrop School on the current site, if that's what's decided. They've also we also talked at length of the possible reconfiguration of the grades, that, you know, whether it be K to 2 at Winthrop and 3 to 5 at Doyon, K to 3, 4 and 5. That was talked about, and people were comfortable with that. And surprisingly, there was a great deal of support for one facility, if it came to that. If the decision came down to the best interest of our kids and of the district, if there were to be one facility with shared common spaces such as a gymnasium, cafeteria, they were certainly open and receptive to that option, that possibility as well. So it was a really good discussion. We are planning, Kevin came to our last school committee meeting last Thursday night to give us an update. We are planning to make this part of our ongoing discussion from this point forward at each of our meetings. So we're happy that the process is moving forward. Not pleased with the recent series of events that have transpired in terms of the numbers that we got back from MSBA, but we'll talk more at length about that this evening. But again, committee's on board, school committee is on board. So, Bill, is there anything?
No, I think you captured it.
Thank you. Sarah?
No, it's good. Can I ask, is there going to be any research done about options? And I don't mean, I guess, I mean, I know the point of the feasibility study is the research piece, but I guess I'm looking for the educational research piece around those. Are we going to do any of that? And if so,
Well,
who does that?
Yeah,
And
part of this process, I think you remember, Sheila, is we're hiring an educational consultant.
yeah, do they do that?
Yes.
Are we responsible for it?
Work in
Okay.
conjunction with them.
Okay.
So there'll be a lot of opportunity for input at that point as well. And also part of the process is we are going to rely heavily on the staff and the administration as this dialogue evolves. I know when I was supervising a couple student teachers over in Beverly at the middle school, in one of the middle schools in Beverly, they were right at that point in the process, and the consultant was actually in the building the day that I was doing an observation, and they had scheduled meetings with various teams. Every teacher had been consulted during that phase of the process. So, and they felt that they had been listened to, and that moving forward, that everybody was on the same page, which was really refreshing to hear, so. Yeah.
One thing you mentioned, combined school, and I don't know what the discussion was. Was it one facility, two schools, separate, two staffs, or was it one facility, one school, one staff?
The way that we had talked about it was, going back to the concept of perhaps K2, one side of the building.
Yeah.
And then 3-5 on the other, with commons, the shared
Okay.
space, the gymnasium,
Okay.
cafeteria, so that, because we realized that as students age, as they develop intellectually, the needs are different. And we really wanted not to compromise, we didn't want to just throw, well, according to the numbers, 775 students into one building and one size fits all.
Right, okay.
So it was going to be separated by that, that configuration, but again, there'd be that common space.
Kind
that-
of almost like the middle school, high school.
Correct.
Okay.
Exactly correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Also, too, that, in a building of that size, as you know, is a three-story building.
Yeah.
So you're able to segregate classes by
Right.
floor. So you have K and 1 on the first floor, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right.
So you're able to, if you didn't do which, obviously has a appealing idea of K2 on one side and 3
Yeah,
and
you could
5
do
on the
knuckle.
other and have the common spaces
Right.
between. You can also do that segregating of the students by floor.
Okay.
Because obviously you put the K in first grade on the first floor, they don't leave their class very often type deal, except for a gym and a lunch and whatnot. But, the upper floors, you do it by floor. So there are different ways of doing it if
Yeah.
when we're studying with the educational consultant, the different variations of how to set that up, which is the best way to, have one building but still kind of, make it feel small for the kids, that they're in a small learning group.
I knew we shouldn't have left that door
Jeff,
open.
right here.
So, walking around the building, this is ensemble.
Now
I
we
know
know.
that.
We'll be here next time.
Architects know.
Did-
This
What
place
are
is
you
like a
saying?
maze.
Oh, what are you saying? You're finding a large building large?
We're just talking.
As an adult?
about schools. So that,
Some
so
signage would be helpful.
I bet you would be good at signage.
We'll have plenty of signage in a new building.
Okay.
Jeff won't
Anyway,
get
let's-
lost in a new one, no matter how big it is.
So, that description by Barry and Kevin seemed awfully concrete and ahead of our game plan. Tell me,
Not really. I mean,
what's the,
it's one,
what's,
if you.
let me just
Go
finish
ahead.
my point.
Yeah.
Question, okay?
Yeah.
So what was the rationale for that, some version of one larger building for whatever proportion of the committee supported it, instead of the separate Winthrop School?
Again, I didn't want to go in and sort of, with the school committee anyway, I didn't feel it was appropriate for me to go and say, okay, we're going to just focus solely on the site that we're currently on.
Yep.
A rebuild of Winthrop School. We have to look at all options, which is what this committee has continued to
Right.
say since day one. So we're not ruling out anything. We just, the one facility, I mean, even in the paperwork that we've gotten back from MSBA, there is an option for one facility with 775 students. So that being said, we wanted to be able to talk about that. If that indeed
Sure.
becomes a reality, then, school committee wants to be very much a part of this final decision. They
Sure.
want to be able to educationally, philosophically, they want to be very much involved in this. And the conversation, in my opinion, was spot on, and it was timely. So the other thing I didn't want to have them do is to sort of close the door at this point in terms of what's possibly available to us. Because we don't, well, with the exception of myself on the school committee, they aren't educators. And we're not going to just, from our own background, we are not going to make a decision
Sure.
based solely on where we're coming from until we get all the possible information that we can. Educational consultant's going to be huge. Feasibility study people's going to be huge. There might be things out there that we're not even thinking about yet with each of these three options that, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense to us. So, but I was appreciative of the receptiveness.
So one of the things I heard in your interchange was the preferability of having elementary school students in a small, I'm not sure what the vision is, but two separate small spaces was the concept that Kevin was talking about. Is that right? Is that the consensus among the committee?
I don't know if we got to that point, Richard.
Okay.
I just think they're, you know, if I can only speak personally.
Yep.
My preference is to have the younger kids sort of segregated from the older kids. That's the way I feel.
Okay.
We took a lot of flack when this building was proposed because there was a lot of anxiety about putting middle school students in the same building with high school students, and from all indications, it worked beautifully. So to rule anything out at this point, no. And I think it would give us an opportunity, to be honest with you, if we had all of our K through 2 students, if that's where we go, and I'm not saying it is, but to be able to focus on them as a critical mass instead of having them in 2 separate locations. I think that there's a lot to be said for that. There's a lot of continuity that can be had. One of the things that we suffer from right now is that we don't get the opportunity to get our staffs together from the 2 elementary schools. Again, that's a positive. Now, there may be some downside to that too, that we can talk about, but those are the things that came into it.
And has anyone ever done a study of towns that have K through 2s and 3 through 5s versus?
I think that'll be part of this.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll be part of it.
Right.
There's a lot to be said for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the research is, and I guess we'll find that out in the feasibility study about small versus large.
Right.
But I know in the disability area, there's a lot of litigation, and the wisdom is large was impersonal and not so nurturing and harder to control, and so the transition was from large buildings and institutions to smaller. This is just my feeling, not anything I know professionally, but I felt like with my own kids going through school that a smaller building with a smaller population allowed for a better atmosphere, more attention, more knowledge of each of the staff for my kids. I think we need to keep our minds open for the discussion of
Absolutely.
either.
But I think a lot of that has to depend too on the internal structure that you set up. For example, if you have a K2 section of the building and a 3-5 section of the building, you've got staff members that are dedicated solely to the K2 side, you get that personal piece. See, I'm of a mind, like I said, I am not a proponent, and again, I've got to be real careful how I tread here, but I'm not a proponent of 1,000 student school.
How about a 775?
It depends on the internal structure, to be honest with you. I've seen cases where it works very, very well. And I was also a building principal, much like Sheila is. I prided myself on getting to know all my students personally, by name. I think that goes a long way.
Yep.
But at the same time, these models can work if that structure is done carefully and strategically. The resources that come to bear on those kids, you don't miss a beat. It can be done.
So, do you think there's a difference on this issue between elementary kids and secondary school kids?
Absolutely.
And your specific experience with secondary school kids, but
Middle school, yeah.
But I also say that, if we really are at 775 as a student population for elementary schools, that would put us into almost in the middle of what other communities are building for elementary schools. It's primarily between 600 and 900 of the schools that I've been designing. And you see,
The large ones.
Yeah.
the elementary schools.
The large ones.
But the majority of them are between those numbers, unless you are a very, very small community.
Yep.
That's the average across all of them.
The average, for the average community is between those, because even when you go on to, when we did the 40 schools that were on MSBA's website, I will say that 30 of them are in that range.
Well, I think there's a couple points I just want to make, and it's not, one way or the other. I think, first of all, you got to decide what your goals are. Your goals first. And we are very much a district or a town that's run fiscally. We make decisions because of fiscal tightness, fiscal conservatism drives decisions. And we've got to somehow decide what the drivers are and how we balance it. And of course, we want to be fiscally responsible, but what's your primary drivers? And I think there's that. And then secondly, I think when you make statements like that, we have to be sure the comparisons are qualified. So whether or not you've got 30 of the 40, it's going to depend on the town size and the per pupil expenditure and all those other things.
Right.
So I just want us to reserve a whole lot of judgment and a whole lot of decision-making until that research process kind of comes in, because I think we will become biased. We have promised ourselves as a committee we wouldn't be biased and we'd be open to things, and I feel already there's an opportunity to dig in, and I would hate to see us do that early in the game without bringing all
Right.
the detail and all the facts to the table. I love the fact that the school committee is on board and making, I would love to see you making, or having discussions around your goals as opposed to the configuration. Because
We're getting there.
from your group, it should be driven by educational goals.
Yep.
Then it gets balanced by,
Right.
Nishan's side of town. But I think that that's the balance, and that's why the makeup on the committee is such.
We're getting there.
And so, and when does the public get introduced to all this? I don't know this was a workshop, not
In what sense?
in hearing what the considerations are, hearing the
Oh,
conversation
yeah,
we're having right
that's
now.
during-
I
that's-
suppose anybody that's on.
Well, I
TV
mean, that's really in the feasibility study, because right now, it's hypothetical. We're not authorized by the state to go into that study, so we're just kind of in this holding pattern of waiting for what the number is, so, those numbers, and then we're gonna study those in the next phase. So that discussion is, when we're in the process of putting together the RFP for the owner's rep and then the architect, that's when you have those discussions of what the goals are, what we're asking, what we're gonna be asking the architect and the education consultant to review for us, and
Okay.
what data they're gonna give us to make decisions on.
I would just say, we seem to be dipping our toes in the water here already, and I just,
No.
I think, yes, we are.
No, we're not.
We're starting a conversation.
It's our
You-
responsibility, Richard, as a school committee, to have these discussions. The time frame is really clear in terms of when the public gets brought into these discussions. For the school committee to sit on their hands and not have a conversation about this is short-sighted.
I'm not suggesting you sit on your hands. I'm suggesting that.
We looked at three
I'm
options.
suggesting that no, I don't think we've done anything wrong with, I'm saying we should start the discussion with the public soon. There's nothing, this isn't about the legal process of school building needs planning. This is the operation of public bodies and a community making decisions. And tonight we've been airing some ideas and rationales, and there's other people that are going to have other voices.
Okay.
And so.
I was just asked to report on the
I understand.
follow-up
I
from the
appreciate that.
conversation, the workshop the school committee had, and that's what
Got
I
it.
was doing,
Okay.
so.
All right, anything else? All right, next up. I think we all know, everybody's received the email, everyone received my email about the little bit of the Christmas surprise we got from the MSBA on the size of the building. For everybody's, refresh everyone's mind, we were given, a good thing. They are allowing us to study the three options, so they are giving us, the ability to look at all possibilities here. Unfortunately, they've given us the options of the one school building of a student population of K to 5 for 775 students. They gave us a number of 375 for a new Winthrop school, which for a K to 5 population. And then they gave us, was it 345?
355.
355, excuse me, 355 to do a K to 2 population. I think I said this at a previous meeting back in November. When you look at the charts that the MSBA has created based on birth rates and the number of women of age to have children, we are a dying community. We have a student population, last year we had a student population of 877, I believe, K to 5. In 5 years, they expect that to dip below 700 and to make a modest increase to 725 or 735 in the year 2024. So based on that, they gave us 775.
They gave us a 40 leeway.
Well, of course, they say that it's going to rise over time, so that 775 is what the population is in 2030 or whatever it was. I forget. I didn't, there's two charts. There's a small
Yep,
chart that
yep.
gave us, and there's one that was, everybody has from that Robin emailed out from the state that shows it going out over a 20-year window.
But we got a building that's going to last 40 years, or...
That's
but-
correct. So that's what makes it kind of nervous, the idea that
kidding.
we would build a building for a student population that's roughly 50 to 60 kids less than we got in the building right now. We will give them somewhat credit, they did, the plan that Jeff put together with all of our input of what Doyon could be. They did give us the idea that we would only have 15 grade 1 through 5 classrooms and 3 kindergarten classrooms. The difference was, I think we were using 21 students classroom and they were using 23. So we came up to 362 kids, which we rounded down to 350. They came up with 399, which they rounded up to 400. So, so make a long story very, very short, because I've gone too long on this. They gave us the letter. We originally had read it, at least I did, that, we were still able to negotiate the student population during this feasibility study, and I think we all left the meeting in November having the same opinion. When Barry and I spoke to him on January 2nd, the words concrete was used, that the numbers were concrete. So it didn't take much of a opinion here, that, Bill had told them that, we're not going to accept those numbers and we'd like to do Plan B, which is they're willing to come in and do some type of inspection of Doyon to try to figure out how overcrowded it is. So.
But they also, in that letter, which I think confused some of us, at the bottom of the lengthy first paragraph, they used the word supersede, which means
Yeah.
that if the numbers, we could prove that the numbers that they had presented were not accurate or didn't truly reflect what we were looking for, that our numbers could supersede the certification that we had been asked to sign.
Because also, too, very good point, because also what kind of makes it murky, too, is earlier in the letter part, not in the agreement, but in the letter part, it does say that they are instructing us to do a study of Doyon to verify the student population that the building will support. So they're estimating it at 400 or 399, but yet in the letter they told us during the study to verify that number. So obviously if the study came back and said the building could only support 375 or 365, then obviously you'd think it would,
You'd think so.
we would think that we'd change the number.
That's
But then
inconsistent with concrete.
Yeah, and then there's also another line in there right after saying that, there's another line there saying that I'm paraphrasing it, but in no way can we assume that the student population would increase to, that the size of the building could increase based on a higher student population.
You did say that. yes.
So it kind of goes both
The
ways there.
writing's not perfect.
It's not perfect. Obviously, it's a general letter they use, and they try to edit it, to make it specific, and unfortunately, wasn't very specific at least for this non-lawyer.
Were they suggesting that that study that they were telling us to do was reimbursable?
It would be part of the,
Feasibility study?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
But nothing we do to Doyen separately would be reimbursable.
Because they had a lot of language about what you couldn't count for.
Right.
Yeah, it was, yeah, we, obviously, whatever we come up with doing at Doyon, from that study, these numbers, this project does not include trying to go in there and do construction work on the buildings.
Right.
But the study does, the money, that the $955,000 does include, doing that study of Doyon, so.
And the middle The middle configuration is the district-wide. Winthrop becomes K-2,
Yeah.
and that then would leave it up to us to
we'll do
reconfigure
the
Doyon to accommodate the 3 to 5
That's
and
correct.
absorb all the costs.
That's
Yeah.
the least favorable, looks like. I mean, means Winthrop's at 420 or something, right? I mean,
Which is,
Yeah, I don't,
I
I don't understand how, well, 355, I mean, I guess,
pushes more numbers that way.
Yeah.
it pushes more
Yeah.
kids to Doyen.
Seems a
Yeah.
curious,
Yeah,
it's a-
it's
Yeah.
more numbers.
that
Well, I
struck
was
me
trying
as
to
a
say
very
is that it
curious
doesn't-
option.
Doesn't make
Yeah.
much sense.
Build a smaller school and move more students.
Yeah.
I mean,
No matter-
obviously,
Yeah.
there's going to be some back and forth, but.
yeah,
into
it doesn't make sense how, if you were to cut the grade in half, the number of kids in half, 3 grades going to this building, 3 grades going to that building, why they just didn't take the 775 and divide it by 2. Yeah, it's certainly a question we can ask, and I'm sure that,
Kevin, do we have any idea when that visit's going to take place? Has that been scheduled yet?
I think they were gonna contact Bill for it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because we are supposed to go back to MSBA in March, is that correct?
March now, yeah.
So I'm assuming that meeting's going to have to take place relatively soon, so that we can respond and react to.
What, March what?
I don't, what's
They
the
they
date?
didn't give a date, it's
Yeah.
March 14th, 24th, whatever. It has to be in March, because March is the 270 days, so whatever,
Yeah.
excuse me, whatever the two, from whenever we started in June, wherever 270 days ends is somewhere mid-March. So that's the last date you can have the meeting. With
Sorry, is
them.
that a site visit? Is that involve a site visit?
Which one?
The March
Rich,
meeting?
No,
March-
that's again, us going to
March
Boston.
25th.
It's really not negotiation, it's more of a ceremonial type thing where you sign a contract and you get your instructions on how to do it.
March
You hope
25th.
it's negotiation.
Not,
Well, no,
the
no, the
Not- no, no.
negotiation has to go before that.
negotiation has to happen
Oh,
before the
prior.
March
Yeah.
date.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're gonna tell you what the world's about.
That's the final.
Well, that's why I'm saying that the site visit has to take place relatively
Sure.
soon, so the negotiation can take
Yeah.
place
And-
afterwards.
My impression was, this was your scramble to get that site visit, because they were, where you started out was, they are sticking with this, they told you they're sticking with this number. right?
Concrete.
Concrete. And you're keeping the balls in the air by.
Well,
having the-
yeah, well, they gave, well, Barry and I, when we had the conference call on January 2nd, I mean, they were very cordial, I have to give them credit for it. There was,
Well,
there
to
was,
a point.
well, come on, Barry. It was the new year, it was the new year. So, I mean, they were saying, well, look, we gave them our opinion of the number. We said to them, we said, look, we understand what you did, but we don't think, this flex area that's, sits very close to Winthrop, the idea of readjusting that number for that flex area. We don't think you've included in there. They listened to us, and they said, well, we'll get back to you on Monday with some ideas or whatever.
Yeah, but
They got back to Bill and said, okay, you got 2 options. You can accept the number, or you can ask for an inspection of Doyon. So it wasn't a very hard, no disrespect, but it didn't seem like a very hard decision to make.
Have they given
but-
us any idea of what they'll be looking for and how we can prepare for their site visit?
But what is, I'm not clear.
Well,
on-
to answer Joanne first, the answer is no, because I think, Bill, they just said, we'll get back to you and let you know what date, correct?
Joe, I think to do anything is probably not prudent. Because, to do anything, because they need to see the facility as it is.
So don't.
Store,
No.
Well, why
She
I
means-
asked the question is
Yeah.
when they did the site visit for Winthrop, they were asking us questions a lot about programming and our programming needs rather than facility needs. And I was wondering if we need to start
I don't,
preparing to answer those questions.
we
when
have
we're on
not,
site.
unless, again, it's a conversation I think that will need to happen soon, is that have not been given any indication that there's any real preparation that needs to happen ahead of time, unless they come forward and say, we need to see this, this, and this. What I was getting at is that storage at Doyon is a real problem. So what I'm suggesting is that if we suddenly took boxes away from the windows, or we took boxes away from the wall space, the little available wall space, I think would be the wrong thing to do. They need to see the building as is.
Oh, yes, I agree with that.
But those other questions, we haven't been privy to those yet, in terms of what they're actually going to be looking
But
at.
I think, Joanne, you have a good question, a good question that when, when they do contact, I guess it's Billy, you're the one they contact, is to ask them saying, is there any data we should have ready for you?
What do you need from us?
What do you need? I mean, then obviously prepare from there, because, I'd hate to think it's just a case of they just walk through the building and walk in, do a loop and walk out the door.
So, but, so,
Maybe I'll reach out to them. I was figuring, when they said we'll be back in contact to schedule it, but it's been a while now, so.
Phone call tomorrow to Nathaniel
well,
Thomas will go a long way.
could we wait just a moment for that? Shouldn't we have an agenda? I mean, what can we hope to get out of that visit? The only thing I could come up with when I heard about it was that we would try to refocus them on that flex idea and show them that to make Doyen as you pointed out to them, a more appropriate education space, you need to move some kids out, because if it's going to stay the same. And use this opportunity to show that it's overcrowded and still will be overcrowded even with the 400, and get that 375 up so that you can have a bigger Winthrop. And doesn't that sound like an agenda?
I'd like
I
them
mean,
to
I don't know what the point of this is except for delay, if it's not that.
I'd like them to see band on the stage. I'd like to see therapies happening in the library. I'd like to have them see a lot of the overcrowding that exists.
I'm looking for a concrete goal that's going to be helpful to us at the feasibility study. And I think having that 375 be another number, a higher number, would give us more flexibility and in the feasibility study. That's, I think I'm hearing we're stuck with the 775, and Kevin's saying they didn't listen to the flexibility pitch, and I thought that the opportunity here was to remake the flexibility pitch with them in the building.
It'll be part of it.
Kevin, what do you think of that?
No, I agree. I think it's three things that we have to make known to them. I think the first one is with Doyon is to, the same issues that the Winthrop classrooms have. I mean, they're a little undersized, and, they're a weird configuration. You only have two walls you can use, and it kind of, even though the rooms at Doyon are bigger than Winthrop, but by the setup of the rooms, it makes the room small of what the educational space is in there. So I think them seeing that, saying, look, yeah, we could fit 25 kids in there, but, you're really packing them in there. So, to try to argue the point that, that instead of planning for 23 to 25 students, we should be planning closer to the 21, 22, because just the sheer size of the classrooms. And then also, as Barry was saying, that, we don't have any of those specialty spaces. I think the second thing is that we need to, not the flex area, but the new construction in town. Obviously there's the Turner Hill, but there's also a lot of others. I believe, I don't know if Robin sent the final list to everybody, but what there is just for new construction permits for 2014 and just the first couple
You really think
weeks
that's,
of.
I mean, they're coming for an inspection of Doyen. You really think? I guess you can talk to them about anything.
There's two things we have to look at. The first one is that, you argue the point of moving student population from one building to the other to make that building bigger, so we can build a little bit bigger of a facility to give us some relief if we see the student population go up. The second part is that do we really accept the fact that elementary school population is going to fall 177 kids in 5 years? That's what their model is telling us, that it's falling, very quickly. So, they're asking us to build a school that will support 50 or 60 less kids than what we have right now, K-5 kids right now we have in the Winthrop school. So we kind of might look kind of stupid in 2019 when the population's still 440 and we built the building for 375 kids.
I agree with you on both issues. I'm just hearing the tone of the conversations that have happened up to now, and I'm trying to figure out what's within reach. And I don't know what the answer to that is, but I guess you can read body language when they're here and figure out, can we bring up this one, or can we bring out the Turner Hill and the other things, or should we stick with the Doyen stuff? So but I do think having a plan for what our strategy is with them and what we're trying to get out of that visit is
I think we
a good idea.
need to raise the Turner Hill and the flex area, because I for one felt like they haven't acknowledged it.
Yeah.
I agree, but they've also turned down the first opportunity, a couple of opportunities to do it, but whatever.
But it's real. I mean,
I do understand. Yep,
Yeah, I just think there's an education process, Richard. I don't think they fully understand that we have kids that live within a quarter of a mile, half mile of Winthrop School, or busing to Doyon School, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to any of us. And I don't think they've really heard that. There has really been no acknowledgement in the numbers, and I think we would be really short-sighted not to remind them and go back to that again. Robin's done a phenomenal job, too, of keeping us updated on, planned building in town. Those numbers are going to have an impact on the schools.
So the 775 number, so they're showing a reduction of 10, 15% in the school-age population. Does that mean that they're projecting that our overall town population is going to reduce by that much, or that our town's going to get older? Because I don't know anybody in town who's saying that our population is going to drop 10 to 15% in the next 5 years. No one has ever said that.
Yeah, they're not giving us any
Okay.
town
So then
population.
my next question is out of that 775, how many other kids are private school or choice out? And if we build a new school, how many of those kids will then opt to stay in
Come back.
Ipswich?
Yeah.
We saw it here.
Yeah,
With the new building.
and I don't know what those numbers are, but how many how many K through 5 school-age children are there in town? Not just how many are attending the schools. And I guess when they look at projections, birth rates, are they assuming that a certain percentage of those kids will not go to the public schools here? Or are they assuming that obviously some of them will go to private schools or choice out or homeschool or whatever it is? Those are important things to understand where they got that 775 number from.
They're doing it strictly off from birth rates.
Yep.
And Barry, the name of the algorithm, the modified Stafford chart, or whatever it is. There's some,
I mean, when we go to the town and say the MSBA is projecting our school-age population is going to go down by this amount, everyone's going to say, really?
Yeah.
It is going down.
Where are they getting that from? Because nobody else in town has ever said that. Sure, if someone asked Glenn Gibbs that number, that question, is our town population going to go down 10 to 15%? He's going to say, no, we don't see that. We expect it to go up. And everybody in town is going to just say, why are we even going through this entire exercise?
Isn't it true that immediately that we are losing at least elementary school population for the next couple of years? Is that the trajectory on? Where are we going in the next few years with elementary school population? Aren't we anticipating some reduction?
Yes.
They're not completely off the charts. They're just extending a trajectory on till 2023, and they're not paying attention to the 40-year number, because so that's really it has a basis. It has direction has a basis, in fact, but it's not population. I don't know what the basis. I don't know why. Do we know why the elementary school population is going down in the near future?
Definitively, no. I think the impact of our economy is being
People aren't having kids.
has been
Okay,
has
I mean,
impacted not only
that's
Ipswich.
That's a national
But-
trend.
I do,
But-
well, but I mean, I just think that what the point that Mitch is bringing up on sort of the rationality of this is absolutely true. I think we need to acknowledge the part that's real, that the national trend, and then point out that we've been advocating for a projection that's going to change as the economy changes and our school-age population is going to, the reduction is going to flatten, it's going to start going up, and we've got a plan for, I don't know what a normal plan is, a 30 or 40-year building. I mean, is this horizon typical, Kevin, on school building needs? This 20-year?
Horizon for the
for-
length of the building or the?
For the size, the date on which you're targeting the size. I mean, we got 2023?
They're using a 10-year window.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
For
Yeah,
a,
we don't build buildings for 10 years.
Yeah.
We build
apparently we
buildings
do in
for
Massachusetts.
50, 100 years.
Yeah, a school building, it's a 40 to 50-year window.
Right.
Agreed.
So
So-
might I suggest, however, that since they've done this project, or they process, that's the same argument every community would have. I'm not sure we hang on that, so I'm gonna look to the English teacher and say, we better make sure we got a pretty clear, I hear what Richard's saying. I think you gotta hone your argument and make sure that your story and your text all supports that argument, because you can drift into these and they'll ignore you. I'm sure every community argues, well, we don't build for 10 years, we don't build
Yeah.
buildings for
Yeah.
10 years. They're gonna ignore us. But what is it that's unique about the argument we're making? And then we gotta stick with that. I think the drive-through town, coming to Doyen is fine, but driving them through the areas that you're talking about, flex area shift, is an important part of the story. You wanna make sure you do that. Things like that, I
Yeah.
think you do wanna hone that argument, whatever that is.
Yeah, I didn't get to my
Sorry.
3 comments, no problem, yeah, because we did discuss that. When I did attend that school committee meeting last week by accident, because I had children playing basketball, so I had to do something for an hour. Yeah, do something good deed goes unpunished. But Carl was asking the same question, what can we do? And so I gave him a call the next day and said, you know what? Why don't you give us a map of the entire town, showing us where the students really actually are. We can draw a couple of lines around it, what the Winthrop population is and where the Doyon population is, and show that, the population for Winthrop is not a circle. It's got 2 long pieces that go out, either toward the neck or down toward Agilla Road, and that there's a large population very far from the building, which requires us to bus students close to the building to the other building. So I think, graphically, if we could show them, to argue that Ipswich is, you hate to use this word, somewhat unique when it comes to geography because of the salt marshes and where we live and stuff.
It is.
We don't all live in a small,
Huge space.
tight community like a Linfield does, or now Middleton does, or some of the other surrounding communities, that there is an incredible amount of open space, and that requires us to live 2, 3, 4, 5 miles from our neighbors.
Right.
So
Right.
I
I
did-
think that's right to the point.
Yeah.
That's an important document we'll want to have in hand and lined up.
Yeah.
That's great.
I haven't bugged him for it, because he said he was gonna work over the
Okay.
weekend, but since, I was gonna give him a couple extra days grace before I started asking
Time's up.
for it.
So do we already have a map of the Winthrop and Doyen districts? Do we
I
have
think,
something
I
to rely
think,
on?
I think we have a map that just, just a very plain map that shows the town. What we're looking to do is to populate the map of where the students actually are, versus
I
just showing a
understand.
map, so.
I was starting with something that I thought we probably already had. I remember
We
we got
do
that.
have
flex-
that.
Yeah, we do have it. You've got a copy of it that was sent to the flex zone area.
We got the
was-
flex zone.
Yeah.
But that didn't show the whole town.
That's the point that they're trying to make
Yeah.
Right.
with Carl's map.
Yeah.
As you know,
Is Carl's
Ipswich,
actually gonna do this?
yeah, Ipswich is like,
It's got software.
there's,
Yeah.
our bus
It's
is
got
going
GIS
5
software?
separate directions throughout the town to
Okay.
bring the students in.
That's what
And
he said.
there's, these maps of placing the students on these maps
Yeah.
will give them a much better idea of
That's
the
wonderful.
physical nature of Ipswich.
He
Us
has,
too.
yeah, he's got the
Us
flex,
too.
the flex zone is done, it's just the rest of the town now that he's gonna
Yeah.
populate.
And, so what's the current use
hope
of the
he's
flex
listening.
zone? Is everybody in the flex zone going to Doyen, or, I don't know?
Yes.
Yeah, most of, yes, we have 41 students that are in that
Yep,
flex zone that go to Doyle.
okay. So, okay, that's helpful. I had actually had, I don't know if we're done with talking about your third
That's
point, but I had
huge.
another
No, I mean, it just was the map. The one thing I did want to bring up is, in their calculations on that, in their letter, the 2009 K-5 population at 925. I would hope that we could find a way to verify that number, one of us, because the reason why I bring it up is because they use that as our historical high, and then we say that we're 58 kids below that number, or 48 kids below that number. So they use it as an example of what, over the last 5 years, how we're falling. The reason why I question, because the year before there was 877 kids. We jumped 48 kids to 925 in a K-5 population.
What year was that?
2009. And then 2010, we fall to
891.
So we go up 48 kids, and then we go down, 34 kids. Where'd they go? 36 kids, excuse me. Because
Because it goes back-
Building? I wonder about building or apartments or something.
And it
Yeah, but we're saying it's a one-year spike.
we have a 1 year, because that's by far the biggest spike, because most years, the numbers, it's 10 to 20 kids is the difference from year to year. And then all of a sudden, this 925 sticks out where you jump up 48 kids, then you fall down 36 kids. All 36 of those kids didn't show up just as fifth graders, then went off to the middle school, because the middle school population, stays relatively flat. I know choices in there that would affect the middle school population, but maybe we can prove that the 925 was actually a mistake by the state when they were inputting the numbers, and that the population maybe was 905, that it's a typo. And so at least we could argue and say, well, look, you're basing it on a number that's wrong.
That should be easy to prove.
Yeah.
It went back up to 905 the following year, so, but the middle school is all staying pretty close. But that is odd. Why does it help us to prove that that's too high?
Because later in the letter, they use that as a reason why to prove their point, the student population is falling.
So it's, by starting at a high point, it's making it a steeper curve.
Because they're using it as an example that if from the 10-year high, we're down 48 students or whatever percentage that is. So if we could prove that number is wrong, then, the fall of the student
The angle's
population is not
different,
as great.
yeah.
I have another question. Push comes to shove, they stay on 775. And we work with our educational consultant and says you really need 850 or 825 or something like that in the schools to accommodate that. And MSBA doesn't budge on it. We say we have to build for this quantity. Will MSBA say we won't participate, or we'll only participate up to a certain number? Or, how does that work? If they disagree with our numbers and we insist on going ahead, will they completely ignore us and you're out of the program? Or will they say we're only going to fund you for 775 kids? And we don't know that. We don't know that question. We don't know that answer. It's something we need to find out.
I believe it's a case of they won't approve us to go into the next module.
Yeah.
Go into design.
Yeah.
So if we were, if let's say it wasn't a compelling case for the 825, but we came up with that number and they said no, either, if they don't accept that number, you've got two options. From what my understanding is that either you accept their 775 and they sign off and we go into schematic design,
Right.
or the project dies.
You cut and run and finance it on your own.
Yeah.
I don't think.
I didn't know.
You can't pay the difference.
I don't think you can do a building without MSBA approval, but
Or whether
I
MSBA
don't
says.
think you can.
Says we'll approve you for this many, and if you do more than that, you have to.
Yeah,
It's the same thing with building a swimming pool.
Exactly.
They, they won't pay for a
Right.
swimming pool.
Or an
but you can
auditorium.
Right, but you can build a swimming pool.
On your
Yeah.
dime,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, they've also cut that back too, because they, 10 years ago, obviously with Newton North, they're trying to stop the have and have-nots.
Yeah.
So, for example, the school we're doing in Peavy, it's a middle school. Middle schools can't have auditoriums.
That's correct.
It's a cafetorium. However, the existing building had an auditorium, and they were able to say that, they needed it for public use, this and that. And because there was already one there, MSB is allowing them to build an auditorium at a middle school because they're replacing something in kind. So before you can build your natatorium or your track or this and that, you have to be saying that you're actually replacing one versus trying to build a field house with 3 gyms in it.
That's what Newton did? No.
Newton built everything.
So I have I have another question. So we've got a 375 number on Winthrop. Do we have an informed opinion about whether the current Winthrop site could accommodate a 375 building? I bet you do.
How many are there now?
That's the feasibility study.
Well,
How many do you have?
but
You have,
by-
well, we have a
by
building there that houses
Kevin's
450.
and Mitch's experience,
Yeah.
I mean, how,
The building, 375, the building's gonna be in the 65,000 square foot range. So it's a increase of 20,000 over what's there now. Guys, it's not that the building would not support the site, it's can you build the new building while you keep
that's a
400 and
different,
something
that's a
kids
different question. I
on?
do understand that, but I'm.
Well, that is the question.
Oh,
Unless-
I asked a different
But
question.
I'm
So-
saying, unless you move the kids, we know we can put a school on the site. It's just
Okay,
saying, the question is, the kids are on that site now, can you build a new building while they're on the site?
I do understand. So the answer to my question is yes, and you've just raised the second question, the difficulty of building a building and where do you put the kids? And I assume communities have done this. I assume there are communities that haven't found a different site to put a school on, and they've figured out a way. I don't know what those methods are.
But it's all site specific, because you have 10 acres there, which is a good sized site, but you have a very weird shaped site.
Yep.
You don't have a square, you don't have a rectangle, you've got something that has a very, very short frontage on Central Street that goes out and then does something like this, and you have a very high hill in the backyard.
Right.
So you can't go deep into the site without putting a very large retaining wall in, you know, to build into that back much. So, you know, it's every site's different, that's why the issues are.
I understand those things. I'm still going with the yes on it could possibly accommodate the site. And my point will be, if we're going with this, using the flex option that you had pressed on them, I would, and obviously there's a difference of opinion here, I would want to not press, and I guess this isn't going to be in the feasibility study, but not press for a number of students at the current Winthrop site that the site couldn't sustain. So if can sustain 375 but couldn't sustain 400, that going for 400 would mean that we'd be giving up that site option, and I understand that site option has some negatives, but I just think that should be that needs to be one of our options, because it is a special site.
But I don't know how you can actually ask the question, because that's hypothetical. Because there's a building there you have to deal with. So you can't say, I'm going to take this site, which exists with a building on it, which is a speed bump, to building anything there, and say, we're going to base all this numbers on a completely hypothetical question. If that was an open lot of 10 acres and you had a clean slate, you could probably build what, 100,000 square foot building there? Probably. That would support what, 500, 550 students?
That's the answer I want.
600?
You get up to 600.
Yeah.
Because
700
the answer, it's not hypothetical, it's just got another item in the decision-making process is what are we gonna do with those kids in the meantime?
Right.
And I don't, so we can resolve that in the feasibility study process, but, so my questions are answered. Because when we started this process, I thought there was a view that site was not large enough to accommodate a school, the size school that we're going to need.
The question then was, the site would be difficult because you had to deal with the existing building. Like if you had an open 30 acres,
I understand
you know what I mean? You could build both and you could phase it. And we don't know the answer to that question definitively, but it was brought up as it would be a challenge, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the way it was
Yeah,
worded.
and I also think too, not to get too architectural on this, but there's another issue of the massing of the new building, how big of a structure it is.
Yep.
Right.
You're talking about a 3-story building, you know, the classroom room being 3 stories, so now you're talking about a building that's 42, 44 feet high. Then with air
Powerhouse
conditioning units on
Village
top.
question.
So now, exactly, so is, you know what I mean, so there's so many,
Those are
there's so many variables
On any
there.
site, there'll be a million variables.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because if you're not talking, you know, the side of the building, you're talking about traffic patterns, or you're talking about something. Isn't that the point of the
Or you're
feasibility
talking
study?
about distance
At the end of the
from
day, we
downtown.
want a building that fits our kids. We don't necessarily want to put a building on a site that doesn't
Right.
fit our needs.
And
Fits
And
our
serve,
kids.
and serve our kids.
And
It's our budget,
community.
because in
Right.
construction, you can
Right.
do
Right.
anything with enough money. It's true.
Well,
But I don't think
I don't
we,
hear that's, I haven't yet heard that it's gonna be expensive to build there. There is extra cost in dealing with the transition. And Kevin's made that point several times, and I do understand that.
Well, it may be logistically possible to put a 500 student school there and keep the kids somehow on site through some creative engineering and
Oh, okay,
construction.
okay, all
It
right.
may be cost
Here
prohibitive.
comes the cost.
Got it.
Right.
Astronomically
Okay,
cost prohibitive.
okay.
That's my point.
The other thing too is not to get too into it, is that
Right.
we have to build the building for $275 a square foot. That's the maximum
Ah.
the state will accept for a building cost that they'll refund, or do their reimbursement on, excuse me. So you've got that limitation of 275, so,
Okay.
you know, site, being creative on the site to make a building fit, yeah, you can do, but you might start losing educational space to make it work.
You're gonna take $100 a square foot right off the bat.
Yeah, because what we could dig down and put a basement, we could put a whole.
Biolabs.
We could put a whole wing of a building underground.
It would be.
Would you do it? No, not really, because it's incredibly expensive, and also you would have classrooms with no windows, but you could do it. So, you know what I mean, as John was saying, I mean, you can engineer anything, it's just a question, can you afford it?
Okay, thank you.
and is it the right facility?
And is it the right
And is it the
facility?
right
I
facility,
mean,
exactly.
you know, limiting ourselves to 375 because it fits on Winthrop, you know, where we need 400.
We,
It's
well,
just-
I,
it's just-
The
I'm
site
not,
is the site, the site is the building.
And I hate-
So you kind of change the character of the site, the building is a hideous block.
Isn't our
You couldn't
focus
design
now
it.
on trying to get the numbers squared away with
Yeah.
MSBA?
That's the key.
That's
So that we can
number
move
one.
on to the next phase, so we can
Yes.
hire
That's the key
SBM,
piece.
so we can hire designers. So I really think our focus now is the Dorian numbers and the overall 775 numbers there, and that's where we can speculate all we want about what we want to do at Winthrop. Let's not waste our time.
This conversation is all hypothetical.
Yeah.
This conversation is
Yeah.
going nowhere if they
Okay.
don't change things.
Yeah.
Got it.
Can I get to some action steps?
Yes.
Yeah, but
Because here's what I have.
just before you, I just want to make clear, the 375 number is K to 5. During the feasibility study, pre-K we add in.
Okay.
So there'd be a minimum if we keep the 2 schools with pre-K, there's at least 2 more or 3 more classrooms, you know, 22 kids you have down there right now
I
in
did the
pre-K?
numbers, and I will tell you, their numbers work for pre-K. But their numbers work for pre-K for what we have next year. And whether they work beyond next year or not is really questionable.
Well, pre-K is not in that number.
No, pre-K, that number will hold our current pre-K. So, let's see if I can, it's been give me a minute to do the math. So there were 8, 10, if you take 8, 10, let me do the math and then I'll get back to you.
Hold that thought.
but,
Everyday math. Tell them again. It's been a while.
but they gave an extra 40 for reasons that were basically a gimme. And those extra, no, it's 40, yes, 220.
I wouldn't say they gave us an extra 40. That 40 is based on the student population someplace out in the district.
Fair enough, okay. But I think Sheila's saying that that's roughly the same as the pre-K
That's
now.
785.
I know, but watch.
Never mind, I'm gonna let her speak first. Sorry.
Are 60 pre-K kids.
Okay.
Or just about.
Sheila, action steps?
Has pre-K.
Sheila? Sheila?
Action step, yes, I've got Bill calling with queries regarding what we can prepare in advance for the visit. I have Carl completing the map and getting it to Does he get it?
This-
That's
Does he get it?
either one of
me.
us,
All
yeah.
right, so
Yeah.
Carl completing the map. What else do you need from us?
The enrollment for the year 2009.
Checking enrollment for 2009.
Right.
Should we be looking at enrollment or should we be looking at school-age kids? Because that's
a great
two different
question.
numbers. I mean,
That's a good question.
What about getting both?
well,
Yeah.
I think, yeah,
have-
I think the school-age number is really the number that we should be barking up a tree on,
Yep.
because that's the one that's the real number. You, as
Yep.
they said, if you build it, they will come. If you put a school on there, you know, 10% of the kids or 15% of the kids that are leaving town may stay.
Yeah.
Do you have any data from other towns that shows?
We have
slight
data from our
variations
middle school,
upward
high
in
school.
enrollment
Well,
post
that's,
new
yeah,
school?
that's a number that we could easily access, the one, when this building went online, right?
You put up a nice place.
But,
How many people, how many
There are
kids
lots
do
of
we
towns that have
reclaim?
built schools
but we
in the
also
last 5
had an
years.
influx of choice students at that time.
Mhm,
So we'd have to
Ah.
consider that too.
mhm,
But I think we should be trying to get school-age kids.
right.
That's the
So,
number we should
all right,
be
so
looking
if that's, I'm just trying to get to that number and do a little historical piece ourselves. We have census data, and then we have kindergarten enrollment data. We could do a comparison of those two over the last several years, you know,
Yeah.
I'm sure over the last 5 or at least the last 8. I'll bet you I
Why
can
don't we do
track that
10?
down.
Why don't we do 10 to be consistent with what they're looking
I
at?
don't know if I have 10.
Okay, okay.
I think I've got 8, but I
Okay.
can look.
Is that just for
Um,
Winthrop or for the
No,
town?
no, both.
Okay,
both.
good, good.
So it's
Perfect.
a town.
Perfect.
What we found more recently than before, you used to be able to count on the census numbers, they were pretty close. Now, because of people and mobility, the census numbers are not as close.
Mhm.
But we can look at that historically, so I'll take that one.
Okay.
Okay?
That's good. Good call.
I wouldn't think that.
A good call. Great spot on.
Good comment. Good point.
Done now.
Well done.
Meeting adjourned.
One and done, Nishan.
Another question regarding a meeting, or regarding a tour at Doyon. Do we need to prep for them, for a meeting or a tour or
He's gonna
something like
find
that?
that out.
We're
Yeah,
gonna find
Bill's gonna call
out
that.
what they want, but in addition, then we need to have a group ready to meet them, to give a little
Yeah.
song and dance, just like we did at town meeting.
Well, we have
What?
we meet next.
2
in
weeks from now.
2 weeks.
So we get a report back
Yeah.
and we can do another.
I think the
subcommittee.
focus of that meeting should be prepping for that Doyen visit.
Unless they say, hey,
Or
we can come
some-
next week.
Right, right.
Then we quickly plan another meeting.
Yeah.
Well, when they call, you say that, you know, we're busy next week.
Yeah, but again, we don't want to push it off too far. We have to be ready
But we
by
need to be able to
March.
negotiate.
They're
We do
not
want-
gonna
We do
be-
want a
Yeah.
little time to
We're
get
not
stuff
high on the
together.
list.
Also, Bill, it's a good point about, you know, who's there for that walkthrough. They were, you know, as you know, they were very, very specific of who they deal with. Just ask them, you know, who can be there type deal, because, just to give you an example, even though I'm the chair of the committee, I don't actually get the emails from them. I have to get him to forward them to me. So, it's just, and like Rita gets them, Bill Kraft gets them,
Yeah.
he's on
Oh,
it.
that's
Bill
town.
is just-
Select-
Oh, all
it's just-
town.
It just, well, no,
It's
he
a town
gets,
project.
That's right.
well, but he gets it as being the town selectman representative.
Right.
Yeah.
Bill, it's just weird about,
Yeah.
you know, Barry and I were talking to them, they're like, we'll get back to you on Monday. They call him. It's just very, very weird who they expect.
Then we took it personally.
You're a sensitive bunch.
I'm back to my action plan. Who's checking the 2009 enrollment numbers? Is that you, Joe?
I can.
So actually, on the point you were just talking about, this is our turf and we're the host. Surely, I mean, I think we should ask them who they'd like to see, but we can decide who's going to be there for the.
Doesn't
dog
work
and
that
pony.
way, Richard.
Doesn't work that way?
Uh-uh.
Wow.
It's their dance card.
It doesn't work that
Wow.
way.
It's the state. So, I mean, it just,
Okay.
you know, obviously,
Right,
if
fair
they
enough.
say, you know, if they say anybody can be there, great. If they say, no, we want to see
No, I
the
just-
superintendent, we want to see the principal, we want to see this,
Yeah.
then we want to make sure those people are available to be there.
Sure.
We had to run a list by them for the visit to Boston, and they said yay and nay on certain people.
I almost couldn't get into the door.
Yeah, we couldn't.
Yeah.
Nishan, sit outside.
Well, that's because the metal detector.
There's a lot of reasons behind it.
Well, I mean, just, yeah,
Change your name.
well, no, just to be honest, we thought it was obvious to bring Sheila with us to talk about the Winthrop School, and they were like, no, we want the, you know, the superintendent of schools represents the schools. So that was just, you know, they were very big about protocol.
And they packed the room.
Oh, yeah, that's right, they want to be able to try to overwhelm you with their
Although the
numbers.
person we needed to speak to during the conference call wasn't there. I mean, the Friday we talked to wasn't there. So,
Institutional behavior.
And so, just the last one, Nisha and I will work with Robin about any other data we can put together about new construction and potential new housing and new bedrooms in the community, above and beyond what we gave them before, if there's been any changes.
Right.
All right,
New business.
any new business? All right, hearing none?
I was
Whoops.
gonna say one thing.
Sure.
Carl, is that who it was? Needs
Carl
any help
Nyland.
with the map?
Call 9.
Let me know.
Okay.
Oh, actually, I did have one item. Are we doing, we had to have a fancy website, and we've had some things happen since that was changed. Are we
You
good?
could use that, you could use some
Updates and stuff.
I mean, I think the public needs to know what, now that we've got a plan, the public needs to know about the communications with MSBA and what their committee is doing about it.
Yeah, we should update the homepage to basically let everybody know what's going on with what's happened since, where we are now, and what are we trying to do before March 25th arrives in terms of getting to a number that we as a committee feel represents where the direction and the population future of the town kind of a thing. I'll write something up and I won't post it, but I'll send the link so that people can see it. Make sure everybody's happy with it.
Good, you were hanging out there without a job. John, I-
Good
No, no.
graphics too, please.
Oh,
just wait, John.
It'll be playing you
Now
later.
or later.
Yeah.
I'll be ready.
I gotta put on that.
Yeah. I'll
Bill
delete the
and
pages.
Do you know how to do that?
Yeah, I gotta remember to get this, and I think we have to approve it here.
We have to vote to approve it.
Yeah. So we'll do that at
yeah.
the start of the next meeting. I'll-
Yeah, bring it to,
I'll
bring
bring the
it,
receipts. I
you
just
know, email it to me and to Robin.
ahead of time.
Ahead of time, because Robin is going to pay it, and I think she might just be doing it out of, a town account because, or maybe she'd just be taking it out of this, I don't know how she was planning on
Alright.
doing it.
I'll
So,
send it to you
yeah,
guys.
but send it to us, and then I'll ask her, we'll ask her what the process is, if something we're approving or something, because it's below a certain number, she's just gonna handle it, so. All right, is that it? All right, do we have a second? All those in favor? Aye. Aye, excellent. All right, good night, Ipswich.
Thank you.